friend with me, Tanya Oliver. So Tanya and I met, about 5 or 6 years ago when I was part of the South Palm Beach County
Uh-oh.
Health. Oh, there we are. Part of the South Palm Beach County Bar Association Health and Wellness Committee, and we did this like group thing. And there was Tanya, and she talked about what she does. And since then, I have been following her, and I use the word following as opposed to stalking, but following her because her content is everywhere. So it's kind of hard to ignore her and watch her really evolve into this not just amazing entrepreneur, but she is a coach for high achievers. She has this amazing spirit about her, amazing energy about her. She's just evolved as a person. And I really wanted to have her on the show because if you're somebody who has really struggled, not just with life, but with, substance use disorders, mental health issues, and like me for a long period of time, you just couldn't get out of your own way and couldn't get your personal life together. You couldn't get your professional life together. Um, and Tanya is just an expert on unlocking that door, that component of your life. And she turns people like me into winners. And so I am so happy that you are here. And by the way, I know that I have aged in 10 years. You seem like you've turned the clock back. We'll talk about that too. But I am so glad that you joined us, and thank you so much for agreeing to be here for the next hour. How
Yeah,
you doing?
great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just happy to be here to be able to serve, and hopefully, those of you that are watching are able to receive value from today's talk, or wherever we're going to chop it up or
So, hopefully, I did you some service in telling the audience about what you do. But maybe tell us in your own words exactly what it is you do. What's your mission, and how do you help people?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a high performance coach, executive coach, life coach, whatever you want to label it as, focusing on 4 pillars of human performance, trying to emphasize, and mission is to get people to understand that as an entrepreneur, it's a high impact, high contact sport, depending on what level you want to play at. Most of my clients and people I'm surrounded with, and including myself, have the aspiration to go pro level. And what that requires us to operate in our full potential, step into our greatness. So, what is that? The business model that I've built out has been focusing on 4 pillars of human performance because we're human. And so, part of being a human being is the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And learning how to really just self mastery, emotional intelligence, and operate at peak performance regardless of your life circumstance and your situation, because life is going to keep lifing, and you're going to have to figure out how to compartmentalize your personal life from your professional life without either one of them getting compromised, as you're in the pursuit of the dreams, goals, and visions that God's intentionally placed inside of your heart and mind. And so that's like the main mission, is to just teach people how to step into their full potential and through those different avenues. And yeah, I love what I do. God's got me on this mission, and I'm definitely the byproduct of it as well. As a lot of people have been actually reaching out recently, like, you've grown so much. I was like, I mean, I do the work too. And so it's very rewarding, and it's a whole different world.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you practice what you preach. I've seen sort of the different, variations of your content. I mean, there's, you know, especially I know that religion, the Bible, has become an important component of what you do, and I've seen postings where you're going through certain verses of the Bible, and having been raised in an Orthodox Jewish family, I sort of understand a little bit about that.
Mhm.
I sort of got away from that a little bit,
Yeah.
when my grandfather passed, but see, I don't think about it as like God, but I do think about it as the universe, because I think one of the things I realized through my own journey is that when you sit quiet enough, the universe does talk to you, and sometimes if you don't listen, it will kick you in the butt just to make sure.
Mhm.
So I enjoyed the content. Tell me, how did you get into all of this? Because I know that wasn't originally part of your life.
hmm I went through a few dark nights of the soul, and I've hit rock bottom mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I came a lot from the new age space, which we do talk a lot about creation versus a creator, until I had I was torn between life or death. I was torn with a lot of, there was probably like 2 to 3 seasons in my life. I call them seasons because life is seasonal and nothing is ever permanent. And we have the ability to really change. And that requires personal responsibility and having, I call it the right lineup of people on your team. So if you're this athlete before you're in this sport, like who are your coaches, your mentors, the people that are capable and willing of supporting you, especially when you're really injured, when you're injured mentally and emotionally. And yeah, I was suicidal a few times in life, and I chose life over death. And I've had I just felt the presence of God. And through that, it doesn't happen right away. For my journey, it was through layers. And so it's a relationship, not a religion. I think that's what I grew up Catholic. My grandmother's Catholic, my grandfather's Jewish, and Jewish people are highly favored, but it's a relationship and it's not a religion. I think religion, a lot of people have religious backgrounds do go the new age route because you're just trying to seek the truth and you're trying to seek some type of security and safety inside your nervous system, inside of your heart and inside of your mind, especially when you feel like the world is against you and you feel like you don't belong and you don't have a place in it. So I know what that feels like. I've been in that a few times in life. I've had everything, I've had nothing. I'm in a rebuilding season right now. I'm very transparent because I hope that it can inspire others. But it's really just knowing how to have the right tools to help you process your negative thoughts, your emotions, so that you do get back up no matter how hard the hit is, versus turning to substances or substance abuse, and coming from a space of addiction and family high achieving entrepreneurs that only knew the tool of substances to help them find relief in their pain, was something that I had seen firsthand and experienced, where I was like, okay, this is not a way, I'm not living. I'm a zombie. I'm numbed out. And there's got to be more to life than that. And then that's where, finding mentors and different parts of my career really has been one of the greatest blessings in my life.
So who's the typical client for you? Who are we talking about? Who typically comes to Tanya and says, hey, help me. I'm not reaching my full potential.
Well, I used to think I was here to help everybody and to save everybody. I work in the outpatient space with Jason Williams and addiction centers and treatments. Is like, but I can save people. And then I had a realization: I didn't come here to save anybody, because it's a very dark space when you're dealing with addiction, when you're going through addiction. And I realized my placement of where what I did was very valuable, because it's very unconventional and very not traditional. I'm not a therapist. I'm people like, but you're this and that. And I'm not your typical life coach. Like, I'm a high performance coach. So you have to have the willingness to operate like an athlete and to, go through some of the dark nights of the soul to get out on the other side to experience freedom and liberation, and to just build quality relationships and quality business with integrity, and just to play for the long game, not the short game or those instant dopamine hits. So my ideal client is really leaders who want to create an impact and to lead with purpose. And it's anybody who has a desire. Typically that's going to be entrepreneurs, CEOs, executives, but there's different tiers to that. So sometimes I have people reach out to me that will make an investment, and it is a big investment for themselves. And they're in the beginning phases of entrepreneurship, because they understand they're a human being before their role, task, and responsibility. And if you want to play at high levels and you want to go pro level, that means you have to learn everything when it comes to operating at high levels as a human being, because that's going to impact your relationships. It's going to impact your business. It's going to impact your finances. It's going to impact every single area of your life. And so that actually needs to be emphasized a lot more, that pouring into yourself, but not the, fluffy new age stuff. It's like, it's a cleaning up process. Like, what are my self-sabotaging behaviors? If I want to become this person, what do I have to unlearn? What aspects of myself do I have to kill? I know it sounds like very dramatic, but there's seasons of yourself that you also do have to overcome. And that's like the self-sabotage, or the addict, or the whatever area that's getting in the way of you stepping into your greatness.
Okay, so I mean, are we talking about people? I mean, like for me, I mean, I think I shared with you that I had worked for a personal growth company
Mm-hmm.
that was really focused on the legal profession, and that really opened up my eyes. I mean, in terms of getting my focus back, because for a long time, I hadn't been focused. I'd also been married and divorced, and I was going nowhere quickly. And in 2016, I was broke. So are we talking about people like me, or are we talking about people who are really successful, but they're like, I've got this 7-figure business, but I want to get to 8 figures.
Yeah. Anybody that has the aspiration to be an impactful leader. You are somebody that I can see has a desire, and I can already tell, like, you've been through some hard things in life and you're still here and you're still going. And so typically my clients have athletic backgrounds because that's practically the verbiage that I speak. I'm kind of like, I look at myself as like the coach of people that want to go pro or that are pro, except instead of it being football, or I played 9 years of competitive ice hockey or soccer, it's called the sport of entrepreneurship. So if you're a human being and you want to create an impact in the world and you want to do it on purpose, with purpose, for purpose, then yeah, you are somebody that would be in my ideal client avatar.
Okay, so I mean, do you work with everybody, or is there somewhat of a sort of a screening process? There's certain criteria, because even with us, with our law firm, I mean, there's just certain people that we probably can't help, and we'll tell them that. There's others that just aren't a good fit for our firm, and maybe we're just not the right firm for them. So, I mean, we
Yeah.
have sort of certain criteria. How does that work with you, Tanya?
Typically, I'll get a feel for it. I'll do a consultation and I'll see. You have to be somebody that is wanting and willing to take personal responsibility, because this is when it comes to the inner work and changing your life, like really changing your life and who you attract and what you attract and the type of decisions you make, it requires ownership. So if you're not willing to take ownership, I'm not for you. If you're looking for somebody to baby and like fluff things up, I'm not for you. I'm nice. I'm kind. I'm not nice. So I hold space for my clients, but at the same time, I'm a truth seeker and a truth spreader. So I literally just I sent a voice memo to a client. I told him some of the things that needed to get tightened up. And he's like, man, I love you and I hate you at the same time. Like, you love me, but you hate the truth that I'm telling you, because that means that once you know, you can't go back. And the information that you learn with me, it's impossible to close your eyes to. But that's the difference between pain and suffering. Pain, it hurts. Suffering is you continue to turn your cheek the other way or pretend that it doesn't exist and it's going to go away on its own. And you're delaying the process of you just getting on the other side, because this is something you can't delegate, you can't hand over to somebody else, and you can't purchase it. I mean, you can purchase coaching, but you have to do the work. You have to show up every single day. So there has to be some form of like grit, relentlessness, and an inner desire to really want to change your life.
Okay, so you mentioned the word "do the work." Okay, what does that mean? You know, what does doing the work look like for you?
Doing the work. So the first thing we do is I focus on a vision. A lot of people are operating from outdated visions that have become habits. So first thing we got to get here, like I said, impact and purpose. When you're doing something intentionally and on purpose, yes, strategy comes into placement. Strategy is very important with the execution process, but we have to make sure that the vision is still in alignment with where you're going and what you're building. Sometimes people have built, for example, have a lot of externally successful things, but feel caged to what they've built. And it's an outdated identity. So a lot of the work really that I do is identity shifts. So if you want to shift your identity, that means what you're doing, the habits, thoughts, actions, and behaviors also need to be on the same point with that. There's a word called cognitive dissonance that is a lot of people are starting to go mainstream with. Cognitive dissonance is just like, here's where you are, here's where you want to be, because I don't think life is over the bridge. It's more like steps and layers and seasons. It's like a staircase, because there's never really a there. So it's like cognitive dissonance is like, you say you want to be this person, Mark, but your habits and your actions and your reactions are not in alignment. So these are the things that we got to like work on, and then we're gonna accept the space you're in, because acceptance is a huge part of progress. And we're going to work with just one layer up, one level up, because we're not going to focus up here, because this is where people start procrastinating and they get overwhelmed. And then, they don't think they're capable, which is like these big quantum jumps. And then the cognitive consonance is like when your thoughts, actions, habits are in alignment with who you want to be. And then we just allow time to catch up, because that's just how life works. So hopefully that made sense, because it's really kind of like an under the hood type of thing that's different for each person, just based on where they're at, what's important to them, and what is impacting them becoming the type of person that they truly want to be. So we focus with vision first, and then we get into the habits to see, like, we got to align the habits with the vision, and then we get into overcoming a lot of the obstacles that get in the way.
Yeah. So, before we came on, we sort of, you mentioned the word to me, the gap, right? And I think I said to you, for as much as I think I've grown, sometimes the pull of what I refer to as the dark side, right? Which is the thing that probably got me in a lot of trouble at a much earlier age, right? Was those shiny material things, or it was, I think the word you used was lust, right? The word, the lust, that male weakness. I'll use that word.
Female
The
too.
dark side.
Female and male. It's not a gender. There's something called shadow work. Shadow work is something that we focus in on. That word is also becoming more mainstream in the Christian community. We also call it deliverance work. Deliverance work is working with like the Jezebel spirit, the luster, the manipulator, the controller, and sometimes just depending on our soul wounds, because you and I were also talking, if you have tormentation in your mind and you're operating in duality, you're living two lives. I lived two lives at one point too. I was, working with clients in the daytime, and then I was having business meetings at the strip club at night. So it's like I was living these dual lives. I say I'm this type of person, but my actions and my behaviors of how I'm dressing, the environments I'm putting myself in around the type of people, it's like two separate lives. And that's the thing about duality. And until you start doing things like the shadow work, inner child healing, heart wound healing, and deliverance work, those things will constantly consume you. Even if you do work on your habits, the goal is to create freedom and liberation in the mind and in the heart. That's why a lot of people that are still going to treatment centers or outpatient places, they consistently have habit relapses. And then another thing is that they're still attached to an identity that they no longer are, and that's the identity shift. I just threw a lot of deep stuff. So.
Well, there is, and we don't have, we only have a little bit of time to talk about it, but I want to talk about some of it, because you talked about shadow work and things of that nature and deliverance. So help us understand what that is, because that's a whole like mindset shift. And
yeah, so shadow work is identifying the characteristics that are not who you want to be. They might sabotage. They're the saboteurs. So you almost like you don't even know, because they're the shadows. So it's almost like having blinders up. You can't see them. It's not consciously aware most of the time for people of how they manipulate, or how they're addicted to lust, or how they're like how they have no boundaries, or they're passive aggressive. So it's not always about like the attacker or the addict. It's also about the person that's a pushover and a doormat, and typically those two attract each other. So, and that's why relationships for the long time don't really operate until you have to clean up, even like on a nervous system level. People talk about the nervous system. You become an energetic vibrational match to who you are within. When I was going through one of my dark nights of the soul, my mentor, God rest her soul, she passed a few years ago, but she mentored me in shadow work for 10 years. And one of the things that she had said when I was at a really, really dark point in my life, when I had chose the wrong partner and I had attracted it was one of my biggest like growth spurts, is she said, T, you attract an an external expression of what you're internally suppressing.
There we go. You're back. Sorry, we lost you for a second. Say that one more time.
This is really deep. She said, I literally had to write it down like 5 times. Like, you attract everything in your life is like a mirror, and you attract an external expression of what you're internally suppressing. And that's why sometimes we're like, well, I'm not that person. I'm not the anger, the lasher, the verbally abuser. Yeah, but are you that to yourself? Or are you a passive aggressive? Because the thing about emotions, Mark, is they're hiding. That's why it's called the shadow, because they're lurking in the dark and you don't even know that you're aware. So once you have awareness, you can, and then with the right tools, they call them power tools, you're able to start tackling them head on and chipping layer by layer by layer. Most of the time, there's things that we learn from mom and dad, or the absence of dad and the people that raise us on. We take on their negative aspects, but we also take on the positive aspects, or we do the complete opposite, because it's like that story of the alcoholic. Did you ever hear that, where an alcoholic had 2 sons and they were interviewed, and one of them was a really successful, I don't know, I think he was a lawyer, but he was like super successful, and the other one was an alcoholic. And he's like, why do you think you're like that? He says, oh, because my dad was an alcoholic. The other one was asked, why do you think you're like that? Because my dad was an alcoholic. So it was like 2 people that made 2 different life decisions because of the same upbringing.
Okay, so that brings about the question then. So is it nature or nurture? Is there a genetic component to, to our limiting beliefs, right? I mean, you've got on one hand, and I've read, some stuff. I mean, Arjun Robbins, who was one of my mentors, who's a big fan of Think and Go Rich, and there's sort of this dichotomy, right? You've got somebody like, for instance, Sir Richard Branson. My father knew Sir Richard Branson when I was a kid growing up in England. And my father sort of jokingly said, when he met him, he thought he was crazy. And he said, it turned out, in fact, he was the smart one and everybody else was crazy. But so you've got somebody like that who's almost got limitless potential and says, okay, I can do it. Or an Elon Musk. Elon Musk, when he was interviewed about Tesla, he said, I thought I had a 10% chance of success. That's good enough for me. I only need 10%. Right? There's people like that who are like, yeah, I'm willing to take that 90% risk. And other people who just, who would never even think about starting a business, they're happy to collect a paycheck. And so how do we, where do those limiting beliefs come in? Where does that come from? And how do you overcome them?
I love this question. So in the aspect of like working with that area, that pillar, so I call them 4 pillars of human performance. And one of the pillars, there's a subconscious work, which everybody thinks it's just the core, which is like the cap, like that we have in ourselves. So no matter how many books you read, which I have my book coming out, right? Building the New, no matter how many books you read or how many audiobooks you listen to or how much money you spend on a coach, there's 4 levels of the subconscious that a lot of people aren't aware of. So that's why when people go to therapy, typically they'll hit like 1 or 2 versus the 4. And that's why you'll maybe never reach your full potential. You've got the ancestral things in your bloodline, things in the DNA. A lot of science talks about epigenetics and the power of belief. And you've got the core, so the things that you're learning in this time. You got your genetic, which is passed down 7 generations back and 7 forward. So the work that you do now also impacts your children and your grandchildren, and what the work that your kids do impact the forward, focus forward. You've got your soul. Your soul came here to build character and learn. That's why the soul wounds, when we repair the soul, the fragmented pieces of our heart, will really impact how we're living, into the capacity of how we're living based on fear or limiting beliefs and stuff like that. And you've got the history. History repeats itself until we decide it doesn't. And the goal is like, how is our behavior serving us? And one of the things was when I was more in the Jezebel spirit, which was more about manipulation and putting myself in positions where I was just drawn to people that were in leadership. Because that's the thing about duality. You can still use it for good or bad based on the motive behind the person. What is your motive behind what you're doing? Right now, it's just to bring families together, to get people to step into their greatness. It's not about manipulation or personal power. It's about really seeing that, because those are my gifts. So within those beliefs, within those layers of the subconscious, like, you've got to figure out where it's hiding, not just 1 or 2, like it's in all 4. And that's why you can have confliction of the mind. I don't know if you ever heard of the story of 2 wolves. Have you heard the story of 2 wolves?
No, share it with us.
Sorry, Two wolves. So funny. I always think like everybody knows these stories, and I'm like, I get excited. So the story
You
of
see, you live in this different universe. That's what it is, Tanya. And
well, now
so
it's
you're sharing some of this with us, and I
yeah.
love it because we're
Because the
learning
cool thing is
as we
like
sit here.
because I've been on this side, I've been on that side, and now I'm on the other side. And that's the cool thing is now since I've accepted Jesus in my heart, and I'm realizing, wow, like I had a false illusion that control and manipulation and power were over here. But there's power in submission. There's power in the light. There's actually more power there because that has authority through Jesus to cancel, clear, and handle all that other stuff. So it's a false illusion, right? Like we have these beliefs until they're not beliefs anymore. So the story of two wolves is there was a Cherokee Indian. He was a leader of the tribes, a leader, and he's passing down wisdom because that's a point of like parenting or being a teacher or a leader is to pass down wisdom to his grandson. And he was telling the story of the battle of two wolves. And every day there's the dark and the light. There's the ego, there's the manipulator, there's the addict, there's the negative the negativity, there's the controller, there's all these things like, and then there's the light, there's kindness, there's compassion, there's grace, there's safety, there's like all these like positive things that are working, and every day they're at battle. They're going at it every single day. And then he just stops and the grandson says, Grandpa, like which one wins? And he says, the one you feed. So every day we talk about going to the gym and working out our body, but what about the mental rehearsal? What about the emotional, the tactical emotional training to learn how to process your negative thoughts and emotions? What about those workouts? What about time in scripture, or time with God, or time in meditation, or time in just like taking those healthy time out to like, just like learn to like be intentional with our breath and to breathe and to ground ourselves. Like every day those pillars need to be worked on in order for us to like purify ourselves. And it's an everyday thing because the higher you go and the environment you're in, the more you're going to put yourself in positions to be attacked. You're going to be putting yourself in positions where people are going to test you. And so you have to be so solid and so rooted that nothing breaks you ever.
Okay. So, I mean, I think one of the things that I've admired about you for a while is that you talk the talk, but you walk the walk too, right? I mean, you practice what you preach. And I really, that's one of the things I've watched you sort of grow as a coach, and I bet you there's a lot of other people like me who've watched what you've been doing and are like, wow, that's, it's inspirational.
It's a compound effect. The thing is like, talk about, you and I were talking about Alex and Layla Hermosi before, where Alex says, everybody might clap for you in the beginning and they might clap for you at the end, but what's going on in the gap, the in between space as you're taking the steps? There's a lot of nights crying, lots of nights questioning things, lots of nights like doing things like you don't want to do, like going through the pain to eliminate the suffering because you're doing the work, but there's something that starts to shift inside of you. There's something that shifts in your mind. You feel stronger. Your spine is stronger. That people say you don't have a backbone. You start to have a backbone again. You start to become ruthless. Like no matter what comes at you, like you got this. And it's not that I did this in my stories the other day where there was this boxer that won, and he was like, it's not that these obstacles are removed. It's that your legs get stronger, your arms get stronger, you have more endurance, you have a higher capacity because you're playing at a pro level. If you want to play at Pee Wee, that's on you. It's not to be judged or measured up or compared. And that's another part of the shadow is like constantly measuring up, constantly judging. And those are still aspects that I work on. Those are still aspects because if I've been operating, because I'll be 42 in January, if I've been operating a certain way for years, then that means it's going to take a little bit of time to create a new aspect of my personality, my thought process. So that means just need a little bit more work.
So, I mean, I sort of view you as not just a coach, but as an entrepreneur too, right? Because you're growing your business by helping people. Sorry, one of my cats is deciding to show up. Hold tight there. Yeah, we talked about this. We rescued 5. My wife and I rescued 5 kittens, and now we have 2 of them. So, it's interesting. My father was an entrepreneur. He left school at 14. My mom's 16. So when they joked that when they met each other, each one thought the other one was rich. It turned out they both had, neither one of them had two nickels to rub together. And, together, my father built businesses. Some were really successful and he made money, and some were not, and he lost his behind.
Yeah.
So, and I never really thought I'd be an entrepreneur, but then, two things really happened. One, I hit rock bottom financially. I lost my dad. And of course that meant I had to make sure my mom was taken care of. But I also, spent that year working for that personal growth company I talked about.
Mhm.
And I think two things came out of that. Number one, I realized the reason I'd been miserable personally and professionally, because I tried to not to practice law, was because I had failed to take 100% responsibility for my life. And I think you have to take responsibility for your successes. You can pat yourself on your back.
Yeah.
And then when you fail, you have to be willing to take the kick in the butt too and say, I dropped the ball on this one. So that was a key thing. The other thing for me was about finding a group of people that I could help. I had to have a mission, right? It couldn't just be about money. And listen, we have been very rewarded because we built a business and we've made money. A lot of it we give back because we're now able to help the community. But I think that those two things for me will really shaped my life. And I'm still a work in progress. I mean, I have my moments, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we all
But
are.
yeah, but for you, I mean, what was it really all about? Because I know that you played hockey and you had this other life, which we haven't gone into, and I don't want to pry into your personal life,
I
right?
think
Unless you want to share it, that's up to
yeah,
you.
I've lived many lives in this lifeline. People are like, how are you so young? And you know this and this and this. I'm like, like when God is working with you and God knows that you are all in, whether you're all in the dark or you're all in whatever, I've always just had a desire for teaching, and with teaching comes great responsibility. One of my favorite quotes, I know they say it a lot in Spider-Man, but it's also in scripture. With great responsibility comes great power. A lot of people self-destruct with power because of their shadows, and they don't know how to be responsible. And that's part of leadership. If you don't care about other people, you're not a leader. That's why I don't work with manipulation. I will work with manipulation if somebody has a desire to change it, but I don't work with people that intentionally want to get somewhere to hurt other people. Most of the time, those people are mostly hurting themselves. And that's what I mean about building this luxurious, as you mentioned, outer world, but internally you're a prisoner to it. And when you're talking about stuff, one thing that I also start with people is a life audit. You're talking about money, you're talking about a career, and maybe a little bit of health and family, but you've got 12 subcategories of life. And these are the things I talk about in my book. And from there, you audit it and you do an honest audit and taking responsibility. I'm unhappy. I'm miserable. I don't like this part of my life. Cool. Now we can change it. If you can't be honest about something, then you can't have conscious awareness to even change it. But when you start to be honest about things, regardless of how evil you might be in your life or all the messed up stuff you did or how horrible life is, you have a pulse and you have a breath. Let's work. And that's what I'm saying is you just have to have the willingness to put in the work. But there's I know I went a little bit on a tangent on there. What was your
No, it's just fascinating stuff, Tanya.
There's just so much stuff. There's so much stuff to talk about when it comes to human behavior and the human being and getting people to operate with a fulfilled life, because that's a core value. And establishing core values and standards is establishing, okay, I want to live a fulfilled life. That's a core value. Let's audit, and a lot of the verbiage too is very business. I am an entrepreneur. I am a business owner. This is a business to run this stuff. This is a business to go out and do public speaking, write a book, go on social media, make money out of it, turn your passion projects into, it is a transactional, it is a business, it is an entrepreneur. So yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I'm just at a different level. We're all at different levels in different seasons, and some levels they get wiped out. In order, I kind of look at it as like a building. And if a building is no longer God's will for your life, the building, what we don't realize is we think we're in control. And that's why we do things out of fear to control. But if you're submitted to the wrong God, if you're submitted to the wrong form of control, your life at some point will get demolished. And maybe one category, maybe two categories, and maybe all categories. And that's where we can build. And that was really the inspiration of the book title, which is Building the New. Building the New, a year of living life on purpose. But yeah, I mean, it's just, there's just so many components, and I know it might sound like super overwhelming as I'm talking for those of you listening, but it's really simple, and it's like step by step, and it becomes a compound effect, like 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, and you just, as you have a forward focus, at the same time you're still like cleaning up the past, because the past will chain you down, it will hold you back, it will catch up at some point. Maybe it will catch up in a year, and maybe it's going to catch up in 20 years, but at some point what you're not facing will catch up to you.
Okay, let's talk about your book, because I know that when we've talked in the past, I know that you've been working on the book. Tell us about what it's about, when it's coming out, how people get it.
Yeah, so the book ideally is gonna be out. My goal was to have Thanksgiving, was it to be out in Thanksgiving. I'm doing the final read through. But ideally it will be out this year. It will be out before Christmas. I want this as my birthday gift, to have my own published book in my hand and to have it in your hand as a gift to give you guys. But building the new is really about come as you are and let's build. And it's a plug and play. So I really wrote it in the aspect where it's something you can come to every year. Each chapter is like a puzzle. We start off with vision and goals. Then you plug in what that is, and then we get into life auditing, which I shared a little bit here. Life auditing and building your 10 out of 10 life, and identifying like what maybe your like step is, your +1 step is. Building yourself into what a 10.0 version of yourself is, and having that vision and having clarity, because then you can, when you have a target, you can move. A lot of people drift because they don't have targets, or they're operating in somebody else's target, or they conform to somebody else's life. And so, you have a brain, you have a heart, and it's yours. And so like, let's make sure you're efficiently using it so that you have happiness and fulfillment in your life. Then we get into core values and standards, and we get into the 5 obstacles that block your blessings. And then the final play is just like game time, put it all together, execution. So, and like accountability calendars and stuff like that. But they can get it at tanyacoliver.com/build. Actually,
Okay, got to say that a tiny bit slower so that everybody's. I know we're going to share this.
Yeah.
Say it a little bit slower.
Tanya, TANYAC, like in cat, like you got your cats, Catherine. So tanyacoliver.com/build.
Okay. So, and we're going to make sure that when we share this, that we make sure everybody has access to the book. Let's switch for a second. I know that exercise is and movement is a big part of what you do, right? I know that you work out. I know, is it salsa?
Well,
Latin dancing, and I've seen you rollerblading, and I know that's a big part of what you do. It's right. Tell us about that, why it's so important.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because this is part of my shift. Is I'm not dancing so much. I've been celibate, and God's got me in training to become a wife. So I'm not dating anybody, but like I'm still, when I do date, it's going to be dating for marriage. So I am going more of the laws of scripture, the laws of the Bible. There's a lot of reasons why those are super important. And so I've eliminated anything that triggers me into my old ways, right? When we talk about addictions, we talk about environments, but the things that once fulfilled me was dancing. The things that once fulfilled me was like rollerblading all the time. Those things, as you start to change and as you start to shift, those things that once brought pleasure aren't really there anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever done something in the past where like you go back because it brought a really good memory of how you felt, and then you go there and it doesn't have the same effect anymore?
I do. And for me, I've always felt like when I exercise, that helps me to sort of reconnect. And I've also, for a long time, I was in the martial arts, and I enjoyed that. And I always felt like when I was having a stressful day, that helped me to sort of reconnect with, with myself, right? It helped. It almost like it wiped the slate clean.
I just hear your cats like going crazy.
Yes, we have one that's going.
I know you're distracted, and I saw it jump, and I was like, "Those cats are going crazy here on this conversation." We're probably
true. Well, I think you know what it is. I think they heard a different voice. They used to only hearing mine.
Yeah.
And when they only hear mine, what happens is they tend to crawl up on the desk and they fall asleep either in front of my computer or behind my computer. And
Yeah.
one of them has decided to go missing while
Yeah.
we're doing this.
A little crazy. I saw
Yeah.
that.
Okay. He's in here now.
I
Okay.
do strength train. I love a lot of walks. I've been doing a lot of prayer walks recently. So these are things that are more in alignment in this season. I do enjoy dancing. Sometimes I'll just twirl around while I'm getting ready, like by myself. But I realize like there's certain things like the music I don't listen to anymore because it triggers me. It triggers lust. I mean, I'm single, I'm celibate, so and I'm human. And I just eliminate anything that triggers me, really. And I know it might sound extreme, but even in the book, I talk about the difference of verbiage, and the discipline is really, self-love and self-respect and having healthy boundaries, which leads to the freedom and liberation. So there's, when you change your mindset and you have a different perspective, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It just feels like a form of obedience to get you to be the person you want to be the fastest. And I love speed. I love getting to where I want to be the fastest. And sometimes the fastest is 3 years. Sometimes the fastest is 4 years. So yeah, I don't put myself in environments that trigger me anymore, but I do love dance and strength training. I'm in the gym like 4 or 5 days a week. I love walking. I still rollerblade. Now that the weather's nicer here in Florida, it's not hurricane season anymore. So yeah, movement and exercise is a huge part of mental health. It's a huge part of helping you just take breaks. I can, even working a lot can become one of my vices. Being in a single season and a season of consecration and a season of like having a lot of goals, I could easily just, numb myself into work. And so I've realized when I take those healthy timeouts, I call them healthy like timeouts, to just take a break, it allows me to renew my mind, and whatever emotions I'm going through, it just kind of works its way out. I have a lot of creativity, a lot of insight, and it just, yeah, so that's a different perspective. It's like a meditation and movement.
Okay. So I want to know, is there anything that you do like a vacation where you're like, okay, I'm taking a week off, or I'm taking some time off, or a long weekend? Do you
Yeah.
ever do something like that?
I do believe like once I hit my targets, I talk a lot about bribing yourself. And when you achieve a goal, that it just depends on somebody's personality. I have a very high achieving personality, and that's why I think I do very well. I know that's why I do very well with entrepreneurs, exec CEOs, and people that are really have the same brain, because it's a specific type of how we're wired. So I use them as a way to leverage off of motivation to complete things. So once I complete the book, absolutely, I definitely want to take a little bit of a break, but then,
But what does that look like for you? I mean, in December, my wife and I,
yeah,
we're taking a cruise, right? We're taking
yeah,
a transatlantic cruise. It'll be in the middle of winter, so
yeah.
we'll be forced to do things other than sitting in the sun, which we can do here, any day of the week. So, like, and I'll be honest with you, I'll be the first one to admit it. Much to my wife's chagrin, I do not do well disconnecting. Partly because this has been my baby for the last 10 years, and while I have staff, I have a tough time letting go, right? Because I still have a little bit of the mindset that, well, I can only do it,
Mhm.
if it's going to be done the best, it has to be done by me, which is complete bullshit, because I have two lawyers that work for us, and they're both better than me. And my wife is a better lawyer than me too. And
Yeah.
yet I still have, so for me, that's a little bit of a mindset shift, right? I got to let go. But
Well,
if I don't disconnect,
well, it can be, I do love Grant Cardone's approach, where talks about intertwining it, and intertwining like the trip with it, and plus like tax write-offs and this and that, where you turn into conferences. I love conferences. I kind of think conferences are like breaks, but then again, you're talking about you're married, you have a wife. I'm single. I have to compromise right now. My time is time with God and time with myself. I'm in a very consecrated, building myself season, where that's why time is so important. Like I value time so much, time and energy. And I'm very selective with how I share my time, who I share my time with, and when I share my time, because I am mission driven, just like you. And when you're mission driven, I look at it as like incremental breaks. But then again, when you're in a relationship, if there's not strong communication and understanding and boundaries, then it will negatively impact the relationship. And so it's just something that's where you're like, this type of stuff is not, yes, there's certain like practical like formats and a certain framework, but for the most part, it's you're in a specific season, and whatever your goals are for yourself and your goals as a married couple, because it's important to have goals, to share the goals. You both are unique two people that ideally are whole, coming together to create massive impact and complement each other. And so just like you'd have personal goals, you would share those, and then you'd have goals together. And that's where like there's a difference depending on what somebody's season is and what their goals are and what their values are and who is a part of their life. I love my nieces and nephews. Those are like my little babies, and I love them. So I will prioritize that time. But here's where a lot of entrepreneurs fall short, is they don't know how to be present. So if I'm with the babies, I'm with the babies. They have Auntie Tanya. When I'm with like my family, I'm with my family. When I'm with my friends, I'm with my friends. Like I know how to be fully present, and that's the biggest thing. So it's not about the amount of time or how much time you take off for this and that. It's like, how much quality time can you fully be present where they can feel that you're present, that they feel heard, seen, and understood. You feel heard, seen, and understood. You can spend one quality hour and then go back to your work and they felt like satisfied, versus you being with them thinking about work. People can feel when you're somewhere else, especially women. Like women and kids, they just know, and so I've noticed that to be like a really big thing. So I think it's maybe redirecting the way the question is asked. And when you do go on vacation, can you be present at dinner with your wife or do activities together that you both enjoy, where you both can strengthen the intimacy level that you have outside of sex? Because sex doesn't always necessarily mean intimacy. It means like, okay, understanding each other's wants, needs, and being able to fulfill those, and to be able to like be fully present in the moment with them. And then know how to, like, when you're at work, and when you're with your family, you're with your family. When you're with your friends, you're with your friends. Like, you're present. It's a superpower.
Yeah, and I have to tell you that for me has been difficult. You know, I was lost for so long that, now, and look, there was a time when, especially the first year or two, where the phone didn't ring and I couldn't pay my rent, and
Yeah.
I went through all of that shit. And now the phone rings and rings and rings, and I'm like, it's hard for me to ignore it, but yet I have staff that answer the phone. I have receptionists, I have paralegals, I have two associates. And for me, when I see that phone ring, it triggers me sometimes. It triggers me, right? Because I remember a time when I couldn't pay the rent, and I'm like, well, there's the rent, right? And there's somebody else I can help, and I have to let that go. So I'm with you.
Talking
And
about
it's tough.
identity shift, right? Like, that's an outdated identity that is a past memory that triggered pain and then fear. So that needs to be cleared. And identifying, like, how is it still serving you, because it still lives within you. And that's where we're talking about the 4 levels of the subconscious. And that sometimes need to be served, because when we hold on to limiting beliefs or things that sabotage our relationships in our life, then we have to like go back to that moment of like, what was the lesson learned? How is it still serving me? And can I still receive that lesson without having no boundaries with work? Because that's a boundary with work. There's a boundary with even shutting off work and going to bed at a certain time, which I did with a friend. I was like, we were reading the book and she was helping me read it together, and she's in California, so we have to figure out time zones. I was like, hey, I have a hard stop, it's 8:00, and that's my night routine. And it's hard, but that's the power of discipline equals freedom. And I understand how I want to operate and function, and the type of quality, yours would be like type of relationship you want, but like, that's the identity shift work. That's a perfect example of subconscious clearing and identity shift.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm a work in progress. But, in terms of goals, especially with the partner, right? I think what do they say? Opposites attract. Opposites may attract, but they can't live together. And I know that from my first marriage. My wife and I have our goals are very much aligned. I mean, we don't do everything together, but we work together. We're together. The weekends come along. Truthfully, we're just happy to spend time together alone because she's my best friend. It's easy to spend time with her, right? And if we're going to take a break, we're taking the break together.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of couples it doesn't work, but for me, it really does work. I mean, she's the person I enjoy spending the most company with, even when the cats go missing.
Yeah.
So,
I think I
I
want
think
to touch on this because it's so important. Number one, we say things out of programming. Like I went to say the other day, I was like, oh, I'm going to sleep like a baby. I was like, wait a second, babies don't sleep. Why do we say that word? Just like opposites attract. There's a difference between chemistry and compatibility. So you might be attracted to somebody because of an unhealed relationship with mom and dad.
hmm.
And that's a correlation of what love, of how you experience love, even though it was unhealthy love and it was destructive love, but that was your experience of your creators, which was mom and dad versus the creator, God's understanding, definition, perspective of love, of God's definition of love. If you've never experienced God's definition of love, how would you ever know what to do? And that's called feeling work. Feeling work is reprogramming the nervous system so it becomes healthy, flexible, and regulated. And so you're no longer attracting dysfunction through chemistry because chemistry's off, right? Brain chemistry, heart chemistry, everything like that. And then you start to attract compatibility with the person that you want to be. That's why the single seasons are so important. It's like cooking or like time
What
out.
does that mean? What does that mean? Single season.
Like instead of jumping from relationship to relationship, because the thing is like when or attract or jumping from business to business or and you're still complaining about the same thing, that means like I'm the problem, but if I'm the problem, I'm also the solution. And it means like taking a space, the gap, to clear things, to work on yourself so that you're not attracting the same pattern, person, place with a different name, location, but at the same time, it's the same pattern. So that's what I mean about like that season. So single could be more the relationship aspect, because who you choose as your partner is one of the most important decisions you're ever going to make in your life.
So true.
It's one of them. It will build you or it will break you. And I've chosen a really bad one actually during COVID. I did a really bad one during COVID, and it could have broke me. But thank God for the people I had on my lineup, the information that I know, because if I didn't know what I know and I was teaching even during that time, that's when I really had to turn into the athlete where I was on like coaching calls. I was going to speak, and I had a speaking event in Mexico for a week. And yeah, I found out it's in the book, so suspense. I'll give you guys suspense in there. But I had to compartmentalize my personal life from my professional life because I was training multi-millionaires, and I'm on the call, and these guys are paying me a lot of money, and here I am, went through like so much trauma, and have to show up like full on focus of let's strategize, like pull clear, and like let it be about that. And so yeah, like having those seasons to like still handle business without pouring your stuff into what you do, because that's another thing too. It's the same thing, when you're working and you're pouring your work stuff and your nasty attitude and your stress into a relationship, you're like even though you're with them, it's like you build up resentment, like, oh, I don't want to be here. And it's like the moment that is taken from you, you like grieve. I'm like, I wish I had my family. I wish I had that. Maybe they didn't die, but it's like because of your emotional unavailability, it broke away the level of intimacy, right? And
So you talk about attraction. So why do you think you attracted that individual into your life?
when I talked about earlier is like we become vibrational matches to what we're internally suppressing. Was not operating from, that was one of my greatest teachers in life. It was one of my greatest teachers in life to like wake up. And I think sometimes we have to be willing to die in order to actually live. That was just my story. And I was like, if I'm willing to die, then what if I choose to live and like do it on purpose and really, really clean up what I need to clean up? But talking about chemistry is I was attracted to a lot of dysfunction because I was dysfunction. Even though I was like regurgitating all this stuff and talking about this stuff, I wasn't being disingenuous or unauthentic. I really was doing the work, but I just wasn't aware of the stuff that I know today about the subconscious stuff, about the shadow, about the inner child. Like I was doing the shadow, but I didn't understand to the capacity of the things that I know today. And part of understanding that is what like kept me still functioning and operating. That's so it's like called toxic positivity.
Okay. So a lot going on in your life. What does the future look like for you, at least for the next couple of years? I know that you have goals and plans.
Yeah. The future is to create as much impact as possible, but the biggest thing is to number one, the only thing I can see super clear right now is to get the book done. Once the book is complete, to go a lot harder on social media, get a lot more on social media, to share the information with others, and to really target really impactful, influential people and inspire them, because, or not inspire them, but like get them as clients so that they can then create massive impact with all the people that follow them. Because you're going to, leaders impact a lot of people. There's a lot of responsibility with leadership because of the amount of influence you have other people. So if you're influencing people in the wrong direction, it's just, I think a lot of people just don't know, which is out of ignorance. And that's why this information needs to get out there. And then some people do it on purpose. And so, yeah, it's simple, but it's not easy. So the only thing that I have super clear right now is getting the book done. The book actually turned into 4 books. So getting all the books out and getting back on stages, speaking, and working with very influential people that really do want to lead with impact and purpose, and create a dent in the world in a positive way.
I love that. Okay, so for people who are either watching now or who are going to watch the rerun, if they decide they want to talk about maybe doing some work with you, how do they find you? How do they get in contact with you?
I'm pretty active on Instagram. I use like my Instagram, like my text messages. So you can find me at Tanya C. Oliver, Tanya C. Oliver. Email Tanya at TanyaCOliver.com. And then I have the free gift, which is just like a playbook for you guys you'll know when the book is released. But if you go to TanyaCOliver.com/build, you can get a PDF on 10 steps to like build mental strength and step into your personal power. And then, you guys will have my email in there as well. And it's a free gift for you guys.
And I bet if they just Google Tanya C. Oliver, they'll probably find you.
They could, but you can literally find me on Instagram or on email. And then I have a website. It's super outdated. You're going to see there too. It's TanyaCOliver.com. It's really outdated, but there's a link where you can contact me there as well. It just comes down to really prioritizing. The biggest priority right now is getting this book and just continuing to sustain and serve people along the way.
I'm so glad that you came here. And I appreciate you joining us. And for the folks that are watching this, if you're interested to hear about what we do, which is to save families whose loved ones are suffering from substance use, mental health disorders, and failed attempts at recovery, you can find us online at mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com, or just Google me, Mark G. Astor. I don't know if I'm quite as active as you, and my content is somewhat more boring than yours, but I'm out there.
Boring, as long as it's sustainable growth, then you got to get used to the boring. That's the opposite of addiction, right? It's constant stimulation, constant dopamine hits.
And I also learned being an entrepreneur, sometimes you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable too.
Oh, you always have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's literally like, I think if there was laws of entrepreneurship, that would be one of the heads up.
Yeah,
hey,
for sure. So Tanya, stick around. And for those folks that are watching or watching the rerun, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll have another guest next month. And with that said, have a good rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we're done. That was good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And, yeah, I know it might be a little bit all over, but yeah.
It was great. It was great. Thank you for doing this, Tanya.
You're welcome. Yeah, if you need support with anything too, let me know, because I can tell you're curious about it, and it is different. And typically when people reach out to me, it's because there's some type of willingness to change. And a lot of what I do is it's very unconventional, but typically most people have already done all the conventional things anyway.
Okay, we'll have to keep in touch, but I'm going to keep following you.
Okay.
And good luck with the book. You
Thank
certainly,
you.
I
Thank
know
you.
you're helping a lot of people. I love the stuff that you put out there. I mean, and it's inspirational. I mean, I think one of the reasons I wanted you on was because I'd seen how you've evolved,
Hmm.
and for somebody who's for like me who's on their own journey,
Yeah.
constantly trying to get a little bit better at it. I want you to know I brought you on because I respect what you do. How's that?
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
do. I really do.
Well,
So
I know that's the anointing, where it's like years. I mean, it was it was right after COVID. It was right after COVID, because that's when I was dating somebody. That was the relationship, and he had died July 2021, I think. So it's like that summer, July 4th, is when I got out of it, or clearly because he died. So it was and that was also the part where it was like the rock bottom. Everything that I thought I was doing, getting swindled out of $300,000, built a fake relationship out of being one of many women,